We'll start with this from the AP. A Tennessee law requiring pornographic websites to verify their visitors' age was largely blocked in court before it was to take effect January 1st, even as similar laws kicked in for Florida and South Carolina and remained in effect for more than a dozen other states. On December 30th, U.S. District Judge Cheryl Lippman in Memphis ruled that Tennessee's law would likely suppress the First Amendment free speech rights of adults without actually preventing children from accessing the harmful material in question. The state attorney general's office is appealing the decision. The Free Speech Coalition, an adult entertainment trade group, is suing over Tennessee's law and those in a half dozen other states. The coalition lists some 19 states that have passed similar laws. One prominent adult website has cut off access in several states due to their laws. The law would require porn websites to verify visitors are at least 18 years old, threatening felony penalties and civil liability possible for violators running the sites. They could match a photo to someone's ID or use certain public or private transactional data to prove somebody's age. Website leaders could not retain personally identifying information and would have to keep anonymized data. In a ruling, Judge Lippman wrote that parental controls on minors' devices are more effective and less restrictive. She wrote that under Tennessee's laws, minors still could access adult sites using VPNs, or they could view pornographic material on social media sites, which are unlikely to reach the law's threshold of 1/3 of its content considered harmful to minors. The judge also said the impact could be overly broad. She noted that Tennessee's definition of content harmful to minors extends to include text. She specifically mentioned that the phrase "the human nipple" or crude combinations of keyboard characters would be considered harmful as long as they lack serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for minors. She also said that this could affect online educational platforms focused on sexual wellness. Okay, so first of all, the definition that Tennessee offers in their law for pornographic content makes a lot of sense. The judge has a problem with it, but can't explain what the problem is exactly. Yes, it is pornographic if it is sexually explicit and lacks, as it says, quote, serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for minors. So obviously a science website, that has information about human biology and anatomy is not pornography. Everybody understands that. I mean, this always goes back to the famous line from the Supreme Court justice in the 60s or 70s who when asked for a definition of pornography said, I know it when I see it. And that's true. Like that is kind of the answer because everybody understands what pornography is. So we get into anytime you have this conversation about restrictions, regulations, it always becomes this academic, well, how do we know? How do you really define pornography? Everybody knows. Like in the real world, when it comes to practical application, there just is not any legitimate dispute. And even though every time we talk about laws and regulations meant to protect children from smut, you get this sophistry, this, how do we define it? What if in some hypothetical scenario, something that isn't pornographic is interpreted as pornographic and also ends up being restricted? Well, that's just not happening, okay? That's not actually happening. That's not real. We all know what porn is, okay? Nobody's confusing Pornhub and like National Geographic. Everybody understands the distinction. Nobody is truly confused about the distinction between a pornographic image on a porn site and an image of the statue of David, right? Even though there's nudity in both, but we all know the difference. We all understand the difference. And you know what? If the consequence of protecting kids from porn is that on rare occasion, a few random non-pornographic things get caught in the net, if that even does happen, that's a trade-off that I'm willing to make. There are downsides to any policy. There are unintended consequences no matter what you do. The unintended consequence, well, supposedly unintended, the supposedly unintended consequence of having no regulations and nothing in place to prevent kids from seeing hardcore porn is that millions and millions of kids, very young kids at very, very young ages, end up looking at porn. So that's the consequence there. When you don't have anything like this, that's the consequence. The consequence of having these regulations is that maybe, hypothetically, a child every once in a while is not able to access a site that is actually non-pornographic. Okay, well, you tell me, which of these consequences is worse? Which set of unintended consequences is the greater threat to the well-being of children? Which will inflict greater harm on the child? So that's all nonsense. And the whole argument from this judge is nonsense. The free speech arguments are just absolutely unintelligible. What is the free speech concern here exactly? Whose speech is being infringed by simply requiring age verification before you access a porn site? Like, what do you mean speech? What if you want to go to Pornhub and have to just prove that you're an adult, like you do when you buy alcohol or when you go to a gambling site? In what way is anyone's speech being violated? And as I've asked a million times, if it is, then how does that also, if you want to go to FanDuel, and place a bet on the wild card weekend in the NFL this coming weekend, you're going to have to verify your age. No one looks at that and says, my speech is being infringed. This is a First Amendment violation. Nobody says that. So how is that suddenly the case when it's porn, but it's not for anything else? And besides, how is going to a porn site a form of speech? Watching porn is speech? What definition of speech are we using here? Consumption is speech? Watching is speech? Watching two people have sex, or however many, is speech? How? Or is it the porn site that is having its speech infringed? Again, how? They supposedly intend to provide this product only to adults. So how is their speech infringed by requiring that they verify that their customers are actually adults? And again, if their speech is infringed by that requirement, how are we also not infringing the free speech of every liquor store in America by forcing them to ask for an ID before allowing a customer to, make a purchase? How is it any different? And of course, this is to say nothing of the fact that pornography isn't speech anyway. Okay, this is another thing that we act like is, this is another question that we pretend is super complicated, and it's actually not. What is speech? How do you define speech? What do you mean, what is speech? We all understand what speech is. Okay, speech is something that conveys a message. It's a point of view. It's being expressed. That is speech. If you're getting a message across, right, in some kind of coherent, intelligible way, you are engaged in speech. Having sex on camera is not speech. There's no message. I mean, you could say that the message of the porn performer is that they're a whore. Okay, you could say that that's the message, but that's like saying that a guy who eats 7 Big Macs is engaged in speech because he's communicating the fact that he's a fat, disgusting glutton. Well, that may be the image of yourself that you're projecting, but it's not speech. Okay, the act itself is not a form of communication. Nobody who sits down to watch pornography is watching it going, they're communicating with me. Okay, you're not like interpreting the message. Okay, like you got a decoder ring and you've got to see, this is the message. That's not how it is. So it's not speech. And we all know that. We all know that. It's not like, well, if you restrict pornography, then the next thing you know, you're stopping people from expressing their opinions. No, there's no reason why one should lead to the other, because they're two totally different things. And we all understand the freaking difference. But the thing that just frustrates me the most is this totally phony argument you hear from the porn sites and their lawyers, and now this judge. The phony argument that, and it's all phony. It's all phony. Like, it's all that. None of this is real. All the free speech, this, that, they don't care about any of that. They just want as many people as possible to watch the porn because they make billions of dollars on it. And they don't care if kids watch. In fact, they want kids to see it. We all know that also. They want kids to see it. Of course they do. They make money on that. The more kids who are exposed to porn, that's not only do they make money on those clicks, but also those are now you're getting kids hooked on this filth. And so now these are, unfortunately, in many cases, lifelong customers that you have earned for yourself. So they want kids to see it. Does anyone really think that the people who run Pornhub actually don't want kids to see it? Does anyone think that? You have to be a soulless reptile in the first place to be involved in the porn industry at any level anyway. These are soulless, amoral trolls, all of them, and so they don't care. So then you get this phony argument that they oppose age verification because it isn't effective. Right? Their real problem is that it doesn't stop enough kids from seeing it. Oh, come on. Again, does anyone believe that? Is anyone stupid enough? Does anyone want to admit to being so dumb that they believe that the porn sites are actually concerned that the age verification isn't more effective? Yes, it's true that age verification at the website level is not perfect. It should not be the only barrier put in place between your child and this kind of content. That's an argument for additional measures, for doing this and more. But the judge is saying that we should not do this at all because it won't succeed in actually preventing every child from accessing porn. Okay, but it will prevent some of them, won't it? So what you're saying is that if it's a measure that will not prevent every child from seeing it, then we might as well prevent no child from seeing it. That's the argument. Which, once again, we would never apply to anything else ever. I mean, age verification certainly doesn't stop kids from getting alcohol. It didn't stop me before I was 21, I can tell you that. It doesn't stop anyone who really wants it. But yet most people agree that it's like, we could talk about the drinking age, should it be lowered to 18? But most people would say, like, we could talk about drinking age. It definitely shouldn't be 10. And yet there are plenty of, unfortunately, 10-year-olds who could get their hands on alcohol if they really want to. And yet, so it's not perfect. It's far from perfect, but it's better than nothing. I mean, are you suggesting, or are we saying that age verification at the website level is just, it won't stop any kids, really? Are you suggesting that every child of every age understands how to use a VPN to bypass age verification? They not only understand it, but they're able to download a VPN and put it on their computer or phone without their parents knowing? Every child can do that? Really? It's just ridiculous. The fact is that a simple barrier of entry on the website, at the website level, requiring age verification, will actually, every day, prevent literally millions of kids every day would be prevented from seeing this stuff. Millions. Now, millions more will get around it. That's true. So let's do more, not less. Thanks for checking out this video. If you'd like to listen to my full podcast on the go, you can check out The Matt Walsh Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.